Police.
To end policing as we know it.
Off the charts violence in New York City. 11 people shot in just 8 hours on
This is
Sunday.
about the police officers who every single day put on that uniform and they run towards danger when we run away from it.
Guns up, giddy up. Welcome to Failure to Stop True Crime Tuesday. That's right, switching it up tonight. Something a little bit different, taking a new approach to true crime, going into a little season 2, introducing to you guys Kendra Jrama. Did
Hello.
I say that right? Did I say that right? Kendra Jrama? Is it Jrama? I feel like it's a rap name. Is that a rap name?
It's not a rap name. It's drama. So it's from
drama.
Entourage. Yeah.
Ah, damn. I wish I was
Yeah,
pop culture-y enough to know. But, guys, you're tuning in for the first time. This is the Failure to Stop podcast channel. And we got a new host for True Crime Tuesday tonight. She's a former police officer out of the Orlando area. And her name is Kendra Jrama. She's got a hell of a story for us tonight. It's the Gerard Schaefer case, also known as the Killer Cop. Tonight's show is brought to you by ghostbed.com/Wolfpack. Sleep so good, it's scary. It's literally scary because you might not wake up ever. I'm just kidding. I've slept on a ghost bed for the last 2 years, woken up every single morning, bright and early, feeling refreshed. I always say that mental wellness starts with a good night's sleep, and that's why we're proud to partner with Ghost Bed. They've got the cooling sheets, so if you stay hot like they do in Florida, melting away to all the climate change and the global warming, you can stay cool with the cooling pillows, the cooling sheets, the cooling bed toppers, the cooling mattress at ghostbeds.com using the promo code Wolfpack. These are amazing beds. They're huge supporters of first responders, and they've been our #1 sponsor since day freaking one. We couldn't be happier to be partnered with such an awesome and amazing company. We also have factormeals.com tonight. Factormeals.com. Promo code there is Wolfpack50. Listen, while all your squad mates are eating like peasants in the squad room, eating their PB&Js, their bologna sandwiches, their Spam and honey, whatever it is, using the microwave for 20 plus minutes because their wife made 6-day-old spaghetti in a Playtex glass dish, you can hit up with a Factor meal. You can choose from 300 something odd menu items. Put that bad boy in the microwave. Could be all the cheap Walmart microwaves that your squad rooms have. And 2 minutes is all you need. And these are picked meals that you pick that are prepared by chefs, delivered to your door in a little freezer pack. I don't even know how they compete with the grocery stores. They have salmon, they have chicken, they have the vegetarian options, the protein heavy options. They have the calorie conscious options if you're up on a diet. But you can get like a 50% off trial run right now at factormeals.com. Promo code Wolfpack50. Don't eat like a peasant. Eat like a king. Eat, just because you're, what is it? Just because you're middle class doesn't mean you have to act like it, right? You don't have to act middle class. You can act like the elites, minus the diddling of children. But no, super shout out to all of our sponsors. We really appreciate it. Kendra, before we get started, you wanted this job. You wanted to come in here. You wanted to be a true crime podcaster. You were a cop. What made you want to do true crime?
Well, I've always really liked the spooky, creepy, like fucked up shit that we see in law enforcement, and listening to it on this platform, this type of media has always been really, really fascinating to me. And I just feel like I could do a good job.
Now, I don't want to judge you right off the bat. I don't like to judge folks, but I'm going to try to prejudge you. Are you you're the cop that decorates her locker for Halloween, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
You're that one that's got like the cobwebs on the locker, and the sergeant's like, who's got the fucking cobwebs and the spiders on the locker in there?
All year long.
All year long.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you got how many tattoos you got? I know you got tattoos.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I lose track. Yeah.
I fucking knew it. How many piercings?
Just 2.
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm working on more. Yeah, yeah.
No, you look true crime. You look the part. Dude, your set looks amazing. What is that back there?
Thank
is that
you.
Like a seance? Is that a seance there? We're we doing seances tonight?
I got my sage over here, so we can if you want to. Yeah.
All right, listen, I'm not going to beat around the bush anymore here. We've got the Gerard Schaefer, the killer cop. For those of you who are just tuning in again, we are a podcast channel. We deliver 5 free shows a week, 5 freebies for all you first responders to keep you guys informed and entertained. And we just brought on a 6th show called the Anti-Hero podcast, the Anti-Hero Podcast. You can search them out anytime, anywhere. We want to get them on the charts desperately by October. So we're in the process of bringing them over. They're in the process of a rebrand at the moment. Delta Force operator and a street cop, again, from the Orlando area. We brought them on because they are raging right now. They're all the rage in the street cop talk genre. We would love to see them with us on the charts. And so they're under the C- media thing. They kind of sold out. Just kidding. Tyler, if you're listening, they're not sellouts. Jesus. But she works behind the scenes for the Anti-Hero Podcast. And they were like, yo, we've got a girl that works behind the scenes. And those of you who have been following Phil and Stop know that everybody that's ever worked behind the scenes with us, Josh, John, Elijah's always made their way to being a host. It's the natural progression of things. And they were like, yo, you should give her a shot at doing some true crime. Basically, she looks like sounds like maybe she's probably committed true crime in her day. That's how perfect she is for true crime. And I said, dude, I'm all in. That sounds amazing. Let's give it a shot. So you guys, please go over to the Anti-Hero Podcast. Check those guys out and leave them a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. That's the only way they're going to get to the charts. Listening time and a rating and review. So go over and listen to them and then give them the 5-star rating or review. And don't forget, tomorrow we're going live with Conservative Anthony for Night Shift Top Secret Information, Project Stargate. And that's live at 6:30 just before Com Center. And this will be the only time that show ever goes live. And it'll be forever on Sundays after that. But for a special 2 for Thursday on Thursday, you're going to want to tune into the YouTubes at 6:30 p.m. to catch Anthony live one time. And you'll never see him live again. Always be pre-recorded. I'm just kidding. There might be a chance you see him live again. Then we have a meetup coming up in October. It will be down in the Orlando area to meet our new podcast buddies and link up with Conservative Anthony, Drew Breezy, the guys from Team South Florida, all the other things. So put on your calendar October. We don't have an exact date yet, but we'll let you know then. And that is it for the housekeeping. I'm turning it over to you. I'm going to shut the fuck up and let you do you.
All right. So, as you said, Gerard Schaefer is a killer cop from Florida. So I figured that would be a good first case, a little Florida spooky true crime. I'll just hop right in and start with his early life. He was born in 1946 in Wisconsin to parents Gerard Schaefer Sr. and Doris Schaefer. He's the oldest of 3 kids with a brother and a sister. They moved from Wisconsin to Atlanta, where he was raised until he was in high school. And in 1960, the family moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Schaefer describes his early childhood as turbulent and conflictual because, I don't know if that's a word, but that's what he said.
Conflictual. Did you make that up?
I don't know. That's what he said. But he said that it was rough because his dad was abusive, alcoholic, chronic adulterer. He was never home.
It sounds like was his dad a cop?
Yeah. Yeah, probably. But the little time that he was home, Schaefer would say that he showed blatant favoritism toward his sister and was abusive to him and his brother, which, I mean, the next logical step, he wanted to be a girl, right? I mean, that's what he says. He wanted to be a girl and he wanted to hurt himself because his dad liked his sister more.
It sounds very emo, doesn't it?
Very emo. Very, very emo. So he just wanted his dad's approval. So he dressed like a woman. He specifically cites wearing women's underwear. And as early as the age of 12, he started having homicidal fantasies of hurting women and hurting himself. He would tie himself to trees. I mean, he was just like really messed up. Yeah. So this behavior escalates into his teenage years and he starts spying on people in there. He's a peeping Tom, essentially. So, yeah. And this is when he's in Florida. So he's in high school. He's a peeping Tom.
You know, I had a sergeant and his pet peeve was peeping Toms.
I thought you were going to say he was a peeping Tom. I was like,
might have been, but no, he was like, you know, we don't really get a lot of peeping Tom calls. I don't know if you did when you were a cop. I probably maybe had 2, but my sergeant was like, if it was a peeping Tom call, he wanted you to go all in finding him. I mean, he wanted like the National Guard to find the guy.
Yeah.
Because he says that peeping Toms always escalate to like serial killers.
They absolutely do. And that's this guy's progression, obviously. But he favored his neighbor, Lee Bonadies. She was his age, went to a different school, but they lived next door. And he would watch her get dressed in the window at night. And he blames her for this and calls her, a slut. She wanted it. She knew I was watching. Probably a lie, but this is what he says. So he's getting older. This stuff is progressing and getting weirder. He has a couple of girlfriends through high school, but they all fail miserably because he's a creep. And a lot of them report that he would force these like rape fantasies on them, and they didn't obviously want to do that.
That's every girl's fantasy, though, right? Like, doesn't every girl fantasize about being raped? I'm just kidding.
His girlfriends might, I guess, I don't know. But so he goes through high school. Once he graduates, he's kind of flopping around. He doesn't really know what he wants to do. These types usually they can't fit in anywhere. He's a complete sociopath. So he's going from job to job and college to college, and he tries to become a priest. He fails out of that. He goes to be a teacher. He fails out of that.
Like, how do you fail at being a priest? You just can't memorize the scriptures or something?
Might have something to do with the raping. I don't know.
I thought that's what they liked in the churches.
Oh, my Catholic mother is listening to this.
I'm sorry, Mom.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So anyway, he's failing out of all these things. He finds a girl to marry him in 1969. And that flopped again. A year later, she files for divorce, claiming excessive cruelty. Go figure. What's interesting about that is in 1969, Lee, his neighbor that he was peeping on, she goes missing. Her husband finds a note claiming that she's gone to Miami to talk to Schaefer about a job that he'd offer her in the CIA or something like that. Yeah, she obviously never returns. 9 years later, her remains are located in Boca Raton, which is kind of close to Fort Lauderdale, but it's just south, I believe, of Fort Lauderdale. She's found, but her remains are not identified until 2004. So all this time has gone by, and they actually believe that Schaefer obviously had something to do with it, but he was never convicted of that. So all these failed attempts at careers and relationships, he takes a real hard left and decides, I'm going to be a cop. So, which I get, like, that's kind of plan B for a lot of people.
Yeah, I can't make it as a priest. Can't make it. I'll just be a cop,
Yeah, somebody will take me. Well, he applied to multiple agencies. The first one, he actually failed the psych test. Shockingly.
It sounds like the Dennis Perkins case. I don't know if you're familiar with the Dennis Perkins case. We covered it a long time ago, but he was a shitty cop, like in 2019, that did like horrific things to kids. I'll tell you later, but because we've already done a show, but like he failed his psych test and still gets in as a cop. Now, listen, Florida's not an easy place to be a cop. Like, you guys have some pretty big agencies out there that have pretty high standards.
Well,
like, how do you fail your psych test and become a cop?
I mean, this was the 70s, and
I guess that's true.
I mean, it was still pretty good old boy back then, so I don't know, but
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. And plus,
it
it's
is
probably like South Florida, like those swamp towns down there, probably in the 70s.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So he fails the psych at, I think it was Broward. It was either Broward or Brevard County. They don't take him on, but he does get hired at Wilton Manors Police Department, which is like a small town in Martin County. This obviously doesn't last long. He gets fired in April of 1972, a year after he was hired. He claims it was a personality conflict between him and a captain that was there. He was doing traffic, and he pulled this lady over for speeding, writes her a ticket. Well, back then, I guess apparently you could take your ticket to the captain of whatever precinct, and if you paid them the fine, they would dismiss the ticket. And Schaefer didn't like that because this lady worked for the courthouse. So him being a man of morals, he's like, this is wrong. I don't like this. And he goes and applies to Martin County Sheriff's Office. Well, naturally, they're going to ask him, hey, why are you leaving to come here? He tells them that story. And the sheriff calls Wilton Manors, is like, hey, your boy's over here talking shit. And they fired him immediately for going over there and applying. So, yeah, that was in April of 72. So June of 72, he's hired on at the Martin County Sheriff's Office. He is there for 1 month, and he encounters a couple of hitchhikers just trying to catch a ride. He stops out with them, and he's like, hey, what you're doing is illegal, even though it wasn't. And he's like, let me take you back to where you came from. These two hitchhikers were 17-year-old Pamela Wells and 18-year-old Nancy Trotter. He's driving them back to their they called it a halfway house, but I think a halfway house was more like an Airbnb back then, kind of, because they'd only been in town for 2 days. They were young girls just traveling. So he takes them back. He says, hey, you're new in town. I'm a nice guy. Let me show you around tomorrow. And they were like, yeah, sure. So, at this point, you're like, this is like the girl going into the basement in the horror movie. And you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Don't go down there. Like, don't go with this guy. But
he's in uniform, right?
He's right. He's a deputy. These girls are young. They're like, this is a safe guy. He's nice. He's kind of their age. He's like 26 years old, decent looking, charming.
Maybe they didn't know they were a badge bunny. And then they see him and they're like, oh, you know what?
He got him young. Yeah. Yeah.
Like this guy. How young were these girls, you said?
17 and 18. Very young.
What was the age of what was this? Well, I don't know. What's the age of limitations back then?
I have no idea. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Somebody in the chat said they're still doing lobotomies in the 70s. Is that true? Does somebody know that? Is that true? Anyway, if that's true, that's crazy. They were still doing lobotomies in the 70s.
It wouldn't surprise me.
But like the one's 18, maybe he's got eyes for the 18-year-old, how old can he be at this point?
He's 26.
Oh yeah, that's perfect age, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not bad. 18 and 26.
Yeah, he's already divorced cop.
Oh yeah. Well, duh. 26 for sure.
There you go.
Every cop's on his first divorce by 26. I don't think 18's too young if you're 26. What's your biggest age gap?
That's acceptable to me?
No, yeah. What's the oldest dude that you like? What was the biggest age gap of a guy you ever dated?
6 years.
Yeah, so 18, 19, 20, 21. So this is only 8 years difference?
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know that's creepy.
Fine.
I don't know if 18 and 26 is creepy. Maybe 18 and 28. 28 is probably when it becomes creepy. No?
Yeah, maybe 10 years. I'm not sure. It depends. I guess it depends.
But what if she's 40 and he's 30?
Yeah,
or
see,
he's
that's
40
fine.
and she's 30. That's fine.
Yeah.
I got you. I say don't. If you're over 25, don't get with any girls that are younger than 24. Because the women's brains, they don't develop until
that's
fully developed till 24.
It's probably just a good rule of thumb. It's just don't go below 24. Yeah. So
all right, so they trust him and they're going to go with him?
Yep. So he shows up the next morning, picks him up, and he's like, we're going to go to a place called Jensen Beach, which is a couple miles away from where they're staying. And he's driving along, but he doesn't take him to Jensen Beach. He takes him to a place called Hutchinson Island, which is just north of Jensen Beach. It's a swampy, secluded area. He parks the car.
Of Jensen Beach.
Right. Yeah, the Walmart version. Jensen Beach is nice. And he takes him to this. So he pulls up, parks the car, gets them out at gunpoint, handcuffs them, gags them, marches them back into the woods to this giant oak tree that is now called the Devil's Tree. And you can actually still go there and do whatever you want to do there.
No, we got to go because we're going down there in October. We got to go. We got to go to the Devil's Tree.
Yep, it's like a tourist thing now. People go there all the time.
That's
So,
kind of sick. That's
yeah.
kind of sick. Fuck those tourists. How dare them. How dare them.
It's a spooky attraction, though.
No, so
But-
like he doesn't even wine and dine these girls. He just straight up's like, let's go to the beach. Nope, not today, bitch. Going
Yep.
to the fucking swamps.
Going to the
Devil's
swamp.
Tree.
Yeah. So,
Damn, couldn't even buy him dinner first.
I know. What an asshole. So he takes them out to this tree. Again, they're handcuffed, gagged. He makes them stand on like the root system underneath the tree, puts nooses around their necks, throws a rope up over the tree, and hoists them up to where they're just on their tiptoes. And the entire time he's doing this, he's got a gun and he's telling them that he's going to sell them into prostitution through white slavery. This is what he tells them to like scare them, I guess, taunt them. So,
What?
yeah. So while this is happening,
He's working for the Clintons.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It was not Hutchinson Island. It was Epstein's Island. That's where. So while he's doing all this, he gets a call on his radio. And this is kind of confusing for me because some sources said that he was working when this encounter occurred and some didn't really mention it. But either way, he had his radio, he got a call, and he left. I'm thinking he was on duty just because if you're in the middle of killing people, why would you care to go? Like if you're off duty, why would you care to leave? I don't know. But he leaves and he comes back from that call for service and they're gone. They escaped. Somehow they got loose from the noose and they booked it out of there. So he's like shitting a brick at this point. You know, he's like, okay, what do I do? And
Yeah, I can't imagine. I can't imagine being in the middle of a serial killing and your victims just disappear.
yeah, I mean, so
We've all been there. We've all been there. We know the feeling, right?
I know it's really shitty. It's like the worst. It's worse than DMV, maybe. But so he decides to call his sheriff and he's like, hey, I've done something really foolish is what he says. You're going to be really mad at me. That's what he tells him. And he
What?
says, yeah, he just calls him because he knew he got caught. I mean, he knew he was done. So he just called a sheriff, who, by the way, Sheriff Bob Crowder, he'd been appointed by the governor that year because the previous sheriff had been suspended. And he was like the youngest sheriff in the state. So he gets appointed a sheriff and immediately has to deal with one of his guys like doing this like crap. I was like, oh, I felt bad for that guy. But
Oh my God. So this guy comes out with it to his supervisor?
yeah,
The
he just
sheriff?
he called the sheriff, not his sergeant. He called the actual sheriff and was
Right,
like, hey
the
man.
sheriff.
So yeah, he tells them that the reason why he did what he did was because he was trying to teach them a lesson on what could happen if they were hitchhiking, which is total fucking bullshit. I mean, he's like, I wasn't going to hurt them. I just wanted them to know what was, and he maintained that story to the day that he died. Like he never admitted to having any intention of hurting them at all, which is such like, yeah, that's a normal reaction. I'm going to tie these girls to a tree at gunpoint and
teach them a
yeah.
lesson. This is what could happen if I was a pervert. This is what I would do. If I was, listen, I'm not. But if I was a pervert, I would take my penis and I would touch you. I mean, listen, I'm touching you with it, but I'm not. Okay. But if I was, this is exactly what I. This guy's a
I know. He's an
crazy
idiot.
person.
He believes his lies and he's an idiot. So obviously he was immediately stripped of his badge and his gun and he was arrested. He was booked and charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault. I tried to find the statutes for 1972 because I felt like there would be at least like a false imprisonment or something. I don't know.
Right? Yeah.
But-
Kidnapping, false imprisonment, abuse of your badge. I mean, I could list out like 1,000 charges for this asshole.
Yeah. So I don't know if it was just the laws weren't like up to date yet, but it was 2 counts of aggravated assault. He bonded out. He had a $15,000 bond. He was released. So this was in July of 1972. And in November of the same year, he goes before a court. He pleads guilty. He's sentenced to, I saw somewhere there were 6 months and 2 years probation, and
What?
yeah, I know. And some said 1 year in the county jail with 3 years probation. I think that was the correct sentence because that's what I saw the most. But regardless, he got sentenced. He was in jail. So
It's worth it. I wasn't even thinking about committing an atrocity like that, but if all you're going to do is 6 months, just do it once. You only live once. 6 months, well, worth it.
That's probably why there were so many murders back then. Like the 70s were wild with this stuff. So that's probably why, because they're like, I could do 14 years.
Like, the most cops ever killed in a year was in the 70s. Like still to this day, I think the 70s, like we lost more cops than any other year. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Somebody will fact check me, I'm sure.
Yeah, somebody fact check because I would like to know that actually. But I'm going to switch gears just a little bit in this story and talk about 2 missing teenage girls from the area. These girls went missing in September of 1972. Their names were, let me get this right. I almost said Pamela Wells and Nancy Trotter, but those are the 2 that were just kidnapped.
And what did Nancy Trotter and Pamela, like, what did they do? They write a book or like, you know what I mean? Like, are they?
No,
alive?
I don't think they even went and did any interviews or anything like that. I couldn't find anything. I tried to.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
To survive that?
Yeah. I mean, and they're young teenagers. Like when I was that age, I would have been like, I'm so fucked. I'm dead. I would have given up. I mean, and they fought their way out of that and ran to a police station. Like, it's just wild just to think about like the balls, because at any moment he could come back and he's got a gun.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It was super.
The panic must have just been intense. Plus, you're in Florida. So, like, Casey Anthony could come out at any point. Fucking alligators and panthers and all sorts of shit. Brian Landry.
Florida man. Yeah.
Florida man. Skunk Ape. Skunk Ape lives down there.
Yes. Yes, he does.
Man. Yeah. So, I'm sure that they probably didn't, But the balls of this guy, though, let's give him some credit, Kendra. He's got some balls too doing this on duty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like pretty ballsy to do it on duty. And at least he had the balls to call the sheriff and tell him what he did.
I mean, that just goes to show like the absolute like insanity that this guy was. He just didn't think he was going to get caught. Didn't care.
And what's scary is that somebody decided to hire him.
Yeah, I know. That's really sketchy. Anyway, these 2 missing girls, Susan Place, 17 years old, and Georgia Jessup, 16 years old. Again, they went missing in September of 1972 from Oakland Park, which is in the same like Stewart, Jensen Beach area. These girls came home one day and told their parents, "Oh, we met this really cool guy, and he's super nice, super smart. He's going to take us to the beach and teach us how to play guitar. His name is Jerry Shepard." And so, yeah.
Casanova over here, dude.
Again, they're 17 and 16. So, I mean,
they're getting younger.
Yeah.
And he's getting older. He's
yes,
28
he
and
is.
a half. He's 26 and a half now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, this Jerry fellow comes, picks them up from their houses, and off they go to the beach. But they never come back home. And their parents report them missing, and it kind of just goes, cold for a while. They just don't have any leads. Like, they don't know who this Jerry guy really is. Their parents don't really know who he is. But luckily, Susan's mother, she felt like something was a little off. He's like an older guy picking these girls up to go to the beach. Like, it was kind of weird to her. So she wrote down the license plate number and a description of the car that he showed up in to pick them up. So she gave the investigators this information, but it took them a while to, I guess, use it. And obviously a lot of sites that you find will say, "Oh, well, the investigators just didn't care. It was pure laziness. They didn't give a shit, whatever," the typical thing. But Susan's mother will tell a reporter from the Palm Beach Post later that she somehow got an address for this Jerry guy, but it was the wrong city. So it was the right street address, but the wrong city. And it didn't match the license plate. So it was kind of like, all right, well, these investigators don't have much to go on because, again, it's the early 70s. And I think there might have been computers that they could use, but it was really archaic and it was kind of a smaller police department. So I doubt that they had access to this stuff. Like now you could just put a license plate in a computer and you've got everything you need to know about the registered owner. But back then it was a little different, you know? They had to really, really dig for it.
Yeah, I mean, like they didn't even have like satellite imaging, and like imagine in Florida, and I've done a lot of work in Florida through the military and in the swamps, and you know, as a cop, right, we can use satellite imaging. So if we have somebody kind of run from us, we can jump on Google Maps, Google Earth, zoom in, and we've got like a pretty good idea of the layout of the land. Florida is so thick and so swampy that sometimes and I'm not exaggerating, you can't move 100 yards in an hour through the woods because the vines and the palmettos and everything is so thick that it's like you're laying on a ghost bed of vines in the draws of Florida and the swamps of Florida. And so if you don't have things like Google imaging, like it's really, really difficult to navigate terrain. And so back in the old days, like if you were, without this and you were a cop and somebody went missing in a certain area, you basically just counted off as, well, if they're in there, we'll never find them because you don't have the totality in your mind of how small it is. At least now you can look and you can be like, oh, this is really thick, but it's only 200 yards of thickness. They didn't have that back then. They just saw vast draw vines and shit. And they were like, well, we'll never, ever find anybody in there. It's a lot different now.
Yeah. And it was Florida was still very wild back then. So like you said, everything was just thick scrub everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so Susan and her husband, going back to the license plate thing, they went to like a day outing in the Fort Pierce Stewart area, and they noticed that a lot of the license plates had the number 42. Just they kept saying 42, 42. And back then, license plates would use numbers to indicate like counties and cities that people lived in.
Sure.
So the initial address that she had gotten wrong by accident was in Fort Lauderdale. But this Jerry guy actually lived in Stewart. So once she put two and two together, she went back to the investigators. This woman's really smart. I was like, how the hell did you figure this out?
Daughter, right? Like, I'm pretty sure if your daughter goes missing, you're going to get really smart, really fucking quick.
Yes. But the fact that she even wrote down thought to write down the license plate
That's a good mom.
is a really good mom. Right. So she goes back and reports this, and they figure out that this Datsun, this Jerry fellow, is actually Gerard Schaefer. So let's just go over the timeline real quick again. So, because it's kind of confusing.
Sure. And before you do that, 2,344 cops killed in the 1970s. Definitely the deadliest decade. I was fucking right.
Wow. That's crazy.
Isn't that nuts, though? Like, seriously, the 70s, you were right, is wild.
Yeah, it was wild. It was very wild. Lots of shit going on.
Well, MK Ultra. Everybody was on LSD. So
was that the 70s? I thought that was earlier. Maybe not. I don't know.
I have no idea. I just made that up.
My grandpa my grandpa was a cop, and he did the LSD like Vice stuff back in like the 70s. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. But anyway, so the timeline is July, he encounters the girls that escaped. He bonds out. From July to November, he's free. These girls go missing in September. So while he was on bond, he murdered these girls. Total psycho. Like anyway. And I'm sure he murdered more, but these are the two, they went missing and all that. So anyway, he's in jail serving time for the escaped girls. This is April when they figure out that it was Gerard Schaefer, not Jerry Shepard. So
so he just kind of changed his name ever so slightly, because Gerard Schaefer Jeffrey Shepard or whatever. What is it?
Yeah. Jerry
Jerry
Shepard.
Shepard. It all sounds, very similar.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jerry might be a nickname for Gerard. So, I mean, that's
Right,
like...
yeah. My name is Derek Tinsley.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to say it was February or March, unfortunately, the remains of Susan Place and Georgia Jessup are found on Hutchinson Island, dismembered and buried. So he'd shot Susan in the face, he tied them to trees, and he butchered them essentially and buried them. They were identified by dental records. And then in April we're in 1973 now, the investigators serve a search warrant on his house where his mother and his wife were living, which I'll get to that in a second because I was writing this and I was like, something just struck me about that. But anyway, they're doing this search warrant and they find boxes of essentially trophies from these victims. And I have a list of things that they found. I want to read these off because it's actually pretty important. So they found Susan's bag that she had. They found 3 pieces of jewelry belonging to Lee Bonadies, the one that went missing in 1969, and newspaper clippings of her disappearance. A gold-filled tooth belonging to Carmen Hollick, a shamrock pin, and newspaper clippings from her disappearance as well. An address book belonging to Belinda Hutches, a purse belonging to Susan Place, a piece of jewelry belonging to a Mary Briscolina, a passport, a diary, and a book of poetry belonging to Colette Goodenough. Might be good now. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And a driver's license that belonged to a Barbara Wilcox. Along with that, they also found a couple of guns and knives, which isn't too unusual, but it was found with this stuff. And they found a journal that had over 100 pages of sketches and stories that this sick asshole had written about these girls that he murdered. And I read some of them for this, and it's very gross. It's bad. He's disgusting. It's called Killer Fiction if anybody's interested. It's $9 on Kindle. That's where I got it.
Oh, are you serious? You can buy his writings?
Yeah. And that actually goes well, remember Sandra London, the girlfriend? Yeah. She actually later in life reconnected with him while he was in prison and compiled this book for him and published it, which is kind of weird because she also later was engaged to Danny Rolling, who was the Gainesville Ripper. So like she's kind of cuckoo also.
Oh,
but yeah,
she's got a thing. She's got a thing, right? Like
she's got a type.
She's got a type.
Yep,
Like,
she's
hey,
got a type.
Fucking killing people. Cause if so, I'd love to suck your dick.
I would love to watch you kill someone, please.
Golly.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I forgot your mom was listening to this.
She's fine. She'll be okay.
I
already told her about all this anyway because I was like all excited to do this case, so she's fine.
I know. I should be better. I should be nicer. But let's sloppy toppy. Will Gray says in the chats. So you can buy I have to own these now. I don't want to endorse this or anything, but like I feel like this is a book I have to read.
It's interesting from the perspective of like trying to get inside of his head and he writes some of these. It's obvious that he's writing about his victims. I mean, later he's like, "Oh no, they're just stories."
Like OJ? Did he did it like OJ? Like, if I were to have killed Barbara, I would. Like, like how OJ did it?
Yeah, kind of. He's like, "Oh, they're just fantasy stories. I would never actually do that. They're not real." Yeah,
but he really did it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some that I took a couple of poems from there that he actually addressed to Susan and Georgia and Susan's mom that I can read at the end of this if you want me to.
Yeah, absolutely. Susan's dead though, right? Like that's the
yeah.
one.
Susan and Georgia were the murder victims. Yeah.
Damn, but he wrote a poem.
Yeah, I mean it was.
I hope in the afterlife that they have a poem for him right before he goes to hell. Like I wonder if they've made like a deal. with Jesus. And they're like, yo, Jesus,
Yeah.
this asshole chopped us up, did horrific things to us, and he wrote a fucking poem. Would you mind if, like, before you hit the button and send him to the can we read our poem?
They're doing like a, what's that? The slam poetry with like the
Slam
bongos.
poetry.
And then they just like punch him into hell.
Yeah.
Like Spartan kick him down to hell. That would be
Yeah, I
awesome.
mean, that would be awesome. Like if we made a movie, we'd have to put that in there for sure.
Yeah. So they discover all this stuff, and obviously they're like, oh, let's indict this guy, right? So mind you, he's in jail for at the time. So he's indicted, he's held without bond, and then he goes to trial in the fall.
Somebody in the chat says, what rhymes with hacker up? Schaefer 1975. It's so fucking terrible.
He's sitting in his cell, like trying to find his muse. Like, what rhymes with? That's so bad,
dude. Is this
That's
guy
so
still
bad.
alive? I need a spoiler. Is this asshole still alive?
No.
Oh, thank God.
He met a good
No,
ending.
I don't.
I'll get
I
to
don't,
it.
yeah, all right,
I'll get
I'm not
to
gonna
it.
ruin
I'll get
that.
to it.
I fucking needed to know.
Yeah. He kept he had photographs of some unknown, unidentified women and photos of him in women's clothes, which I wish I could have found, but I couldn't get any of them. That would have been great to see the pictures he had.
Would you fuck me? I'd fuck
Yeah.
me.
Yep.
I watched that the other night, by the way.
It's a good movie. I like that movie a lot.
It was a great movie. Great movie.
So, what I was saying earlier about the home being the home of his wife and mother, I just wanted to say, could you imagine being married to? He had a wife at the time, Teresa, because he divorced that
How did
first
she
wife.
stay? Oh, okay. The first one left him. Did the first one leave him after he strung the girls up?
No, she divorced him in 1970, and he did that in
72. So, but the new wife was so then the wife stayed with him after this through the 6 months of being in jail.
So that's what I'm saying. Like he got divorced from Martha Fogg, his first wife, in 1970, and then remarried the same year to this woman named Teresa Dean Schaefer.
All right.
And she stayed with him. That's what I'm saying. Like, could you imagine? Like, first of all, your husband.
What?
Yeah, your husband's arrested for assaulting 2 teenage girls, pleads guilty, goes to jail. And not only that, I mean, his second wife was 19 when they got married, so like maybe she just wasn't like with it. I don't know. Yeah, she's got to go. He's like Leonardo DiCaprio. Got to go. So she is married to a man who's in jail for assaulting 2 teenagers, and then is hanging out with his mom. In April, gets a knock on the door from investigators saying like, hey, we're serving a search warrant because your husband murdered 2 more girls. Like, that would blow my mind, because I mean, he was a deputy when they got married, so it's like,
damn. I wonder if she
everything's
was
just blowing up.
You never strung me up on a tree, honey. You never gagged me like that, huh?
I would have done that if you just asked me to. Yeah. You never said anything. Oh my God.
Dude, that's like, where's she at? Do you know where she's at these days? Like, what is she? Did she write a fucking book?
So, okay, I believe she's still alive, but I'll get there because it's kind of funny. So Schaefer goes to trial for the murders in the fall of 1973. He's obviously found guilty, and he's sentenced to serve 2 life sentences concurrent. So naturally, he has like 1,000 problems with this, right? Because he's like, oh, I've been framed. He maintained his innocence all the way to the end. So he files 20 appeals. I think it was like 19 or 20 appeals. They're all uniformly denied. He later goes on to file like a dozen lawsuits against authors, FBI agents, and reporters for calling him a serial killer.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
We're going to be on his list, Kendra.
I know.
Bring that on here for a show.
Well,
for a show in, we're going to get sued by a fucking asshole in prison.
From beyond the
Before we
grave.
even
He's
started.
dead.
Oh, is he dead? That's
Yeah,
right.
he's
He's
dead. We're
All
good.
right,
We're good.
All right.
And one of the things that he complained about was that his trial attorney, Elton Schwartz, was having an affair with his wife, which actually checks out because she filed for divorce from Schaefer in 1973 and then married Schwartz the same year. So
No way.
yeah, so they got
Dude,
married.
what is up with this chick?
Florida. Well, it's Florida,
Dude,
man.
Florida.
I mean,
Okay,
seriously.
fair enough.
That's all I can say about that. So but anyway, he maintained his innocence. One thing that I was reading a lot of was why didn't he was connected to 34 women who had been murdered. And I was like, why was he not brought up on these charges at all? Because he was only charged with Susan and George's murders.
Right.
And I read that the courts just thought, well, he's away for 2 life sentences, so he's fine. He's not going to hurt anybody else. We'll just, kibosh the rest of them. But that didn't make sense to me. So I was kind of digging around, and I think what it was when they were finding these women, they were so badly, they were like skeletal remains. There was no DNA back then. And all they had to tie him to it was that he possessed some of their belongings, which, I mean, between you and me, obviously it's like, yeah, he did that shit.
Right.
But you can't, it's circumstantial in the eyes of the law. And you can't just charge someone with something because you think they did it. Obviously, you have to get probable cause. And especially with something as high profile as a serial killer, like you really have to get your shit right. So I think that they just didn't want to touch him because they were circumstantial and they didn't want to compromise the 2 actual murder cases that they could pin him with.
Like, don't ruin what you already have.
Yeah. So that's what I think, because that makes more sense to me.
But you'd think like maybe now in 2023 with all the true crime sleuths and everything like that maybe they'd go back and try to, I guess it doesn't matter because he's dead, but I mean, if one of my children is murdered, like I want the closure. I don't want it to be an open case. Like I want it to be a closed case in the history books that this asshole did it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why, but I just feel like it would make me feel better.
Yeah. Well, it's the closure. It's like, okay, at least he's been attributed with it. Like there's someone to blame. There's someone to, like, it's somewhat of a justice. Like it's
like his name is that more tarnished.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And back then at the time, I was also thinking about this, if they did bring him up on these charges and it was circumstantial, the jury would have found him not guilty if it even made it that far. So now, like on record, he didn't do this crime, even though we all know that he did. So it's kind of a catch-22. Yeah. But so he's in prison. He's serving his time, filing all his little lawsuits. He did an interview from prison in 1991. That's actually really interesting. You can find it on YouTube. It's like an hour long, and it's actually a really good resource to watch if you want to get inside of his mind, because he's like laughing about everything the whole time and trying to like twist things around and victim blame and like all this crazy stuff. He reminds me a lot of John Wayne Gacy. Like some serial killers are a little more, like Dahmer's one of them, Ed Kemper, where they're like, yeah, I did it. This is why I should be in jail because I'm a monster. Right. And then there's like total sociopaths like John Wayne Gacy and Schaefer, who are like, the world's out to get me. I'm just a nice guy. I'm just a good Catholic boy. I love God. And I don't know why this happened to me. And then they're just laughing about shit. Like, yeah, it's just really infuriating. So, but he got his end in in the Florida State Prison where he was at. He was serving with another murderer by the name of Vincent Rivera. And this man stabbed Schaefer to death in the eyes, like just went ham on this guy. And they say it's because of it was over an argument over a cup of water. That's what which is hilarious because it's like this absolute like demon in a meat suit who thinks that he's God's gift and he's so cool dies over a cup of water. It's hilarious to me. So with another psychopath that he's locked up with, you know?
Yeah, Florida man kills Florida man in prison type deal.
Yep. Exactly.
shit.
He died in 1995.
Well, I'm so
in
glad
prison,
that on your
so-
first night here, it's a feel-good story at the end. Because if
Yeah,
this
exactly.
asshole didn't have a good ending, I don't know that if I could go on. I hate it when the bad guy wins, and fuck this guy. Somebody, we had a lot of people in the chat tonight. Let me say hi to everybody real fast. You'll get to know these people too. Will Cray, he's been around forever. By the way, if you got any single baddies out there that want to go to the beach, Will Cray, single. Met him. He's from, I don't know, Minnesota, Minnetonka, whatever, somewhere up there, Wyoming, something like that. And he came down to one of our meetups. Really nice guy. Hard to believe that he's single. So we've been trying to find him love in a hopeless place. It's been months now. Even with our reach, we still can't get this guy love. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if like he's trying to like string him up over dead man's tree or whatever, but or maybe we have found him girls. They've just gone missing since.
Are we giving him ideas?
Maybe.
I mean,
we've got Captain Micah in the group. Thanks, Captain Micah. Jonathan Blondebeard. What's up, Blondebeard? And we've got Marines Bloodbath, TJR, Diesel Check, Bosco. Thank you guys so much, TJR, Captain. I saw a couple of super chats in there. Appreciate those guys. Last known president. What up? Thank you guys, Marines Blood again. Sarah K up in here, and then my old partner Red, living in Michigan. She was on here. We appreciate you guys joining us for night number uno for Kendra Jrama. Kendra, how did you think it went? You feel good about it? You like it?
yeah, this is a lot of fun. I love talking about this stuff, and I could literally talk about this for hours. So I really enjoyed this a lot.
Well,
And-
I'm excited to have you back on Tuesday. We'll work out the kinks. Somebody said that her mic is a little loud. We'll get that dialed in for YouTube. Listen, guys, we are not to make excuses, but producerless. Both of our producers went on vacation the same last week before school starts, and so we're just trying to make it. We're just trying to make it through the week. So we'll get the audio dialed in. Don't you guys worry about it. Tactical dude, thanks for being out there in the chats for us today, homie. Appreciate you. And all the guys out there and girls. We really appreciate it. For all of our first responders working the streets, we hope that you guys stay awake and stay safe. And listen, if you're a cop in Florida, let's not do what this guy did. Let's try to be better. Let's try to be
let's do better.
Try to be better. What's going on with Anti-Hero? What you guys got going on this week before we go? Got any good guests coming up?
This week, I think he's filming with Brent, so it'll be a good episode though, because they're gonna be addressing some of the recent rumblings that have been happening. So
right. So Brent, being the Delta Force operator, he's called out Rob O'Neill for may or may not have been the killer of bin Laden. A lot of special operations guys in the community. I was in special operations for a long time. I've heard of these rumors. I've never heard of somebody substantiating them, but I actually reached out to another Delta operator that I know that's still current, and he agrees with Brent as well. So I find that very interesting. So I will be looking forward to that story, and it's a good debate. But let's not take away. At the end of the day, all these guys served our countries in ways that none of us could ever imagine. And whether Rob O'Neill was the dude that shot bin Laden in the face or not, he was still on the ground, on the raid, on the operation, one of America's most heroic operations, if you will. And so our hats go off to all of you. It's just like WCW drama wrestling. You know what I mean? Like, we love and respect all the characters, but sometimes we like to see them talk shit and go at each other's throats. So I'm sure it's all in some kind of respect or another. And listen, I there's never been a time in the history of the military where an Army dude wasn't shitting on a Navy dude. That doesn't exist. So it just comes with the game, and hopefully none of these guys are too big of pussies and take it too seriously and go too far with it on both sides. I want to see a nice, clean debate. That's what I want to see as a fan. Not that I might say I have a say in any of it, but as a fan, as like a spectator, I want to see a good, clean fight here, guys. Like, I want to see you tear each other's throats out, but I want it to be fair. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, listen, you've done a great job, Jrama. Kendra Jrama. Do you want anybody following you on the Instagrams? Would you would you wanna where are you at
Sure.
these days on socials?
Yeah, if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Kendra Jrama, Jrama, not drama, like drama for your mama. Yep.
J Rama.
Yep. J Rama.
J Rama.
It's Kendra _ drama.
Yep. Love it. And then Anti-Hero Podcast. Make sure you head over there tonight. Don't wait. Go over there, leave them a 5-star rating and review. Leave us a 5-star rating and review while you're there on the iTunes and the Spotify. Keep everybody trending on the charts. We want to be the #1 channel where first responders go to be informed and entertained. From myself, Eric Tanzi, and Kendra Jrama. Kendra Jrama, guns up and giddy up.